So we are going to be talking about today, what is morality? So how do we define it? What are the different types of morality? And there's actually going to be two very distinct types of morality. I'm going to talk about if morality is objective or subjective. Objective means that there is one ultimate set of morality and of truths that actually apply intrinsically. Subjective would mean that morality is just a matter of opinion. And I'm going to talk about how we should be applying our morality to the everyday world. So let's first define morality. And morality really can be divided into two different areas. The first one is a biological instinct, and the second one is the agreements that we, as human beings, as social creatures, and as society, the agreements that we make with each other in order that we are all able to survive and prosper better. So let's start with the first one, which is the biological morality. And that is that we all have instincts which give us a sense of right and wrong, which sort of give us a sense of what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. Even fear of certain things can really affect our morality, how we are kind to each other. Let me give some examples. We have an instinct not to go around senselessly killing other human beings. So that would be something which really comes from our hearts. It's something which we feel that it's really the wrong thing to go and kill people. So let's try to understand where this type of morality actually comes from. And it comes from our DNA, from actual natural selection. Because let's say throughout history, if you would have human beings who would be going around and senselessly killing people, so those human beings would not end up passing their genes on to the next generation as often as those who would not be going around and senselessly killing people, because again, the people who are senselessly killing people, other people are going to kill them back or before they're able to kill. So that's the reason why having that sort of instinct of killing people, that instinct got wiped out, so to speak, of humankind. And the instinct to be moral, that was the one that was passed on from generation to generation. So that's why human beings sort of collectively, at least most human beings, as long as someone isn't like a complete sociopath, we all sort of have this feeling of that it's wrong to senselessly kill people. There is a feeling that we have of kindness. Basically all human beings definitely have, again, with small exceptions. Usually it's because of traumatic experiences that person's had, but normal human beings really have the feeling that it's the right thing to do to be kind to each other. And again, though people throughout history who were kind, who worked together in communities, they survived much more often than those who did not form communities, because they ended up being loners and they ended up having a lot of enemies. So that is the reason why that sort of gene, the instinctive gene to be kind to each other, has been passed down through the generations. The second type of morality is something which is a lot more complicated and sophisticated than just feelings that we have of what is right and wrong. And those are the actual agreements that we make as people together. So they apply very often to the same things, but then there's going to be situations where the two types of moralities are actually going to be telling us to do opposite things. I'll get into some examples. So what's some examples where our instincts and the agreements that we make together in order that we're able to all survive, as long as we both follow these agreements, where are those going to be the same? So killing would be a great example. Not only do we have this instinct not to kill, but if we make an agreement as a society that we will never kill each other, and if someone goes around killing people, we will stop them, and we'll either kill them or incarcerate them. So if we have that agreement, it actually ends up being mutually beneficial. I'm never going to, no matter how angry I get at you, I'm never going to kill you, and you will also agree to the same thing for me. That is actually what politics is the agreements that we make together that are able to help us all survive. If we agree not to steal, we agree in private property. So that will, again, I'm not going to be stealing from you as long as you agree not to steal from me. So that is something which is really going to be helping us both survive, because in a society where everyone is going and pillaging and stealing from each other, obviously people do not thrive and prosper in the same way as when people are not stealing. One important thing that people really need to consider is when to apply the instinctive morality and when to apply the political morality, the morality of agreements. And it's super important that when it comes to a person's actual attitudes, the way they look at the world, the way they treat others, that they apply the instinctive biological morality, and that they not apply the agreements and just go based on the way they treat each other is only completely based on the agreements of society, that they're only following the rules to the letter of the law and they're not doing any more than that. And the opposite is also true. We have to make sure that when we are making agreements, policies with each other, that we are not injecting into that the instinctive morality and are just base feelings. We actually have to decide what is actually going to be the best situation for everyone. We should be making those agreements and making sure that we're not making the mistake of using too much our feelings to be making political decisions. Let me give you a few examples of both of those. When it comes to the way you personally look at the world, if a person is only going to be kind to others based on the rules of society. You know, it's legal to be a jerk. It's legal to be loud and obnoxious and to say mean things to people and to yell at people and basically to be a total asshole. Those things are legal. So again, if a person goes and says, well, freedom of speech, I'm just going to treat everyone based on the laws of the country, and they're not going to have that internal sensitivity of what actually is a sense of right or wrong. So the person is obviously making a really, really big mistake. The person is exhibiting extreme antisocial behaviors. No one's going to like them. They're not going to be able to connect to friends. They're not going to be able to have a relationship because imagine someone in a relationship who only follows the laws and it does nothing beyond the letter of the law in their relationship. Obviously, no one would want to be in a relationship with someone like that. It doesn't even matter if it's with your neighbors, even if you're driving. If you completely just follow all the rules and regulations, but in the meantime, you're just honking at someone for no reason, you're flipping everyone off for no reason, you're just being really aggressive, but you're following the rules. Technically, you're not going over the speed limit. So again, if in the way you're treating other people on a day-to-day basis, you're just applying the letter of the law to politics, so obviously that is extremely destructive behavior. The truth is also the same the other way. Some people, when they approach politics and they approach the agreements and the laws that we need to be making in a society, they're coming completely from their heart. Let me give you a few examples of this. Some people believe that we should not be able to kill animals, that consumption of animals should be illegal. And it's coming from a valid place. They're coming from their heart. They go and they look at the poor animal. You know, in Toronto, they were actually making a very big campaign for animal rights. And they were putting pictures of like in black and white, and it was like zoomed up onto like a sheep face and to a fish face and a cow face. And it was just the word sentient. How could you be eating these animals? This was like a very big campaign that animal rights activists were making. And again, that is a very big mistake because it's valid on a personal level that you feel that you really should not be hurting these animals. I mean, that's a very good personal feeling to make. But when you actually think about the agreements, the politically of what rules should we be making as a society, we're unable to, human beings and animals are unable to make agreements. We do not actually form a society as opposed to human beings with other human beings. It doesn't matter which human beings they are. It can be any race. It can be any type. We are actually able to make agreements with each other and decide, hey, I'm going to treat you in a certain way if you treat me in that same way back. If we were to go to sheep and to cattle and to wolves and live together harmoniously in society and say, hey, we're going to treat you in a certain way as long as you treat me back, we're unable to communicate with animals in that way. And that's one reason why politics, human politics, really should not be extending to animals in any significant way because, again, the whole point of the agreements, the whole point of politics is agreements that we're making as a society, and we're really unable to make a society with animals because we're not able to communicate with them. So if on a personal level someone said, I do not want to eat meat because I feel like that is hurting animals, that's suffering, so that's fine. I think that's a completely legitimate opinion. But again, proposing that the policies, that the laws of the country you live in should ban hurting animals, that would be a very big mistake of applying your personal feelings to the agreements that you make with other people. When it comes to the agreements you make with other people, you have to just decide what is the optimal agreement, what is going to help people survive. And we are certainly not going to survive. Human beings who are actually making these agreements together are not going to survive more often if we are extending human protections to animals. Let me give you another example of this when it comes to climate change. So some people, when they hear about climate change, they say the oceans are going to boil. There's pollution. We're causing immediate destruction to the planet. So some people will take that emotion and that fear and that panic and actually try to make policy based on that. That was really the foundation of the Green New Deal, that you have to just have drastic measures in order to save the climate, and you're coming from this great passion. There was this girl from Europe named Greta Thunberg who was giving these very passionate speeches about climate change, and it was really coming, on the one hand, from a very valid place, from this fear of, if we don't actually do something about climate change and about protecting the environment, the world's going to be a scary place. And that actually is factually true, is that if we are actually emitting too much carbon and we're polluting the environment, it's really going to cause a lot of harm to the world. But again, to take that same emotion and apply it to actual lawmaking and policy is a huge mistake. Obviously, you should be looking at the data. You shouldn't be ignoring it. A little bit of fear, maybe just in terms of the recognition of the actual damage that we are causing to the environment. Of course, a certain amount of that is necessary, but we really have to look very clearly at the data, not let ourselves panic, and actually see what is going to be the most beneficial way, which agreements can we make together as a human species that is actually going to benefit the environment and is actually going to prevent the harm that we are causing to the planet. Let's give another example. There are some people who are religious and they believe devoutly in their religion, and they actually believe that the government should be adopting policies and laws based on their religion. We're going to get into a little bit later whether or not one's religious beliefs, whether or not that counts as objective morality or subjective morality. But at the end of the day, you can have a person who feels in their heart closeness to God, and they feel that they really know that what God wants us to do and what God does not want us to do, and will impose their personal morality onto minority without taking in consideration what would actually be the optimal agreements that we could actually make together. For example, if that same religious majority was in a place where they were the minority and there was a different religion which was the majority, obviously you would never want them persecuting you and forcing you not to keep your religion and to live your life the way you want. You don't want someone forcing their religion upon you. So let's all make a rule as a species that I am not going to force my religion and my beliefs on you, and you will not do the same onto me. That's just another example of when people sometimes make this big confusing thing. Again, some people apply their personal morality to politics, which is a humongous mistake, and some people apply their politics, just the law, to their personal life and the way they interact with people. And those people, we all know some people like that. They say, well, I have the right to do whatever I want. It's a free country. And we all know they are the biggest assholes in the world. So let's explain now, is morality objective or subjective? So objective morality would mean that there is something like some higher power which basically intrinsically determines morality in the world. It has nothing to do with people's opinions. There is just this innate, in nature, this right and wrong, and that is what we must follow, and if you disagree with it, you're wrong. So that would be objective morality. That's going to be a really, really hard thing to justify. We're going to get to that in just a second. Subjective morality would mean that it is a matter of opinion. If one person, let's say, has an instinct that something is right or wrong, someone else could totally have a different instinct. And it really depends on the person's temperament. It depends on the time and the place, the environment. It depends a lot on one's surroundings. People are very, very heavily influenced by their surroundings. So that would be the idea of subjective morality, that it's not something great determining morality for us. Rather, we determine what morality is. Now, this can apply both on the biological level and on the political level. So let's start with the biological level. People really make this mistake a lot. Just because you feel something is wrong does not mean that it is objectively moral. I really think this is someone who, people who are not self-aware and not intellectually honest make this mistake so much. And it really is frustrating when intelligent people hear people like really mix up their personal feelings of right and wrong, and they just inflate it to the point where they consider to be objectively immoral, and anyone who thinks differently is just an immoral person. Let's explain why this is such a big mistake. Just because you're sure does not mean you're right, because according to your logic, if someone else is also completely sure and they disagree with you, then they're objectively right. So who's objectively right? You are or they are? The answer is that the feeling that you are sure, that you're 100% sure about something, does not make you right. That is actually an instinct that you have. You have to really be self-aware. Just because you feel something does not mean that that now is the objective truth of the universe, because there are plenty of people who disagree with you who are just as sure of themselves as you are of yourself. So let's give a few examples. One of my favorite ones is religion. Some people believe that their sense of spirituality and their belief in God and their religion, which dictates what is right and what is wrong, they actually believe that to be objective morality, because it could be they have some proofs to their religion, some evidence which supports it. Could be they just really have this feeling of like this connection to the religion. But what I would say to anyone who believes that that morality is objective and really God-given is that you have people who are in other religions and other belief systems, and they are just as sure of themselves as you are of yourself. And I know you might have some little evidence which supports supports your religion, but every single religion has those. They all have evidence, and they have all kinds of philosophies, and it could be, it's just every religion thinks it's impossible that their own religion could be false. I mean, literally just as sure as you are of yourself, that's how sure they are of themselves. But this idea of subjectivity applies really both to personal morality and to political morality. Let me give some clear examples. What about the attitude, besides for the politics involved, just people's personal attitude towards homosexuality? Is it a sin to be a homosexual? Is it the wrong thing to do, or is it the right thing to do? So, and you have a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions. Don't think just because you personally feel that homosexuality is wrong, that therefore makes that the objective morality, because you have a lot of people who think that it is okay, and vice versa. Don't just think because you think that, oh, homosexuality, there's nothing wrong with it at all, that therefore that is moral objectivity, because it certainly isn't. There are some people who really feel that homosexuality is wrong. We can give examples when it comes to politics. This is actually a very good example. Some people, if they are a Democrat, believe that Democrat left-leaning policies are the objective morality, and of course they're true. And you have the opposite. Some people who are Republicans who are right-leaning are 100% sure that they have the objective morality. And the truth is that they are both wrong. Doesn't matter if you're right, if you're left, or if you're center. Every single idea that we have of politics is our opinion. And if you are 100% sure of yourself, there is someone on the opposite side of the political aisle who is just as sure of themselves. And I know you have some data to support your opinion. They also have some data to support their opinion. There is no actual objective morality when it comes to politics. Now, there might actually be some exceptions when it comes to objective morality. And that is, let's say you have an instinct, which really all human beings have, and we all not just agree upon, but let's say even on a biological level, something that we all experience. For example, all human beings have the idea that we should not senselessly go around killing people. Now, when it comes to the definition of what is senseless killing and what is not, then we disagree, and that becomes a matter of subjective morality. Some people think the death penalty is moral. Some people think you should not have a death penalty. Some people believe in abortion. Some people do not. So in terms of what is considered valid killing and what is not, then we obviously have a lot of disagreements in, and that would definitely be considered subjective morality. But the basic principle of do not senselessly kill people, that is something which basically all human beings on even a biological level and a political level agree upon. And You can almost call that objective morality, and I don't think it's just because, oh, well, we all agree, so therefore that is the fact, because you can have all human beings be under a certain perception, and that perception still be wrong. You can have every human being thinks the world is flat, like they did in the olden days, and really the world ends up being round. So just because people agree upon something does not make it objective. There's something a little more to it than that. I think logically, if you would have people who just believed that senseless killing was okay, those people do not survive as often as those who believe that senseless killing is wrong. Both our biological morality and our political morality really amount to one thing, that they help us survive. Our instincts help us survive, and the agreements we make with other people help us survive. So if we found that everyone who has survived has always came out with this idea that it's wrong to senselessly kill people, and obviously the people who are going around senselessly killing people, they do not survive. I mean, every once in a while you'll have a mentally ill person who goes around senselessly killing people, but that represents such a small percentage of human beings, and usually those people are very severely mentally ill. So one could argue at that point that not killing, because it is intrinsic to our survival as a species to not go around senselessly killing other human beings, that therefore that would constitute to objective morality. But again, it's very rare to find exact cases of that. Maybe you could say the same thing about stealing or harming people, just senselessly harming other human beings. It could be, you could really apply it to those things, with very, very limited amount of things that everyone, first of all, that everyone agrees upon, but second of all, are really intrinsic to our survival as a species. So maybe for those things we'll call them objective morality, but really for everything else across the board, really I think an intellectually honest person who is self-aware of where the ideas come from, it really should be viewed as subjective morality. I want to talk about another reason why people really mix up the ideas of objective morality and subjective morality. People really need to realize how much of their ideas come from their surroundings. We are social creatures. It is part of our survival to sort of meld and like have ideas which are similar to our surroundings, but people, let's say for political views, that they're 100% sure that they're right, and they can't believe that half the country disagrees with them. A person really, in order to sort of get out of that trap of everything that they thinking that that's really objectively moral, you have to realize that if you were born, let's say in a super liberal city, let's say like Toronto or Los Angeles, you are so much more likely to be a liberal person. If you were born somewhere very conservative in a small town in the middle of Kansas, let's say, then you're probably going to be more conservative. If you actually look at the statistics, you end up seeing that like the vast majority of people in any given place really do have political uniformity, and they really do think the same thing as their surroundings. So if you would just sort of look at that fact and imagine if your same DNA, your same person was born at a different time, or even just in a different place, and you grew up in a little bit of a different culture, your ideas would be different. And again, the proof is right in the statistics that most of the people who live in those different places really are, again, just as sure of their ideas as you are of yours. It's just a thing which I really recommend people to introspect and realize that your ideas, how much they are being affected from your surroundings, and that your idea of morality certainly is not objective morality. Why is it important for a line to be drawn between subjective and objective? You can only experience the world through your own eyes. Well, it's very simple. Someone who actually views their morality as being subjective is going to be a lot smarter. Like, even just the anger that you see, for example, in politics, that people just seriously hate people from the other side. If those people would wake up and realize that their opinions are just opinions, a lot of them would not be feeling that hatred. So having the self-awareness, first of all, you're being smarter, being intellectually more honest. Second of all, again, you're going to have different life experiences, more healthy life experiences. They're really much more reminiscent of reality. If you realize that your opinions are just opinions, you're going to be feeling a lot less resentment and hate towards people who disagree with you. Third of all, just for your own actual ideas, in order to obtain the best ideas, if that is really your personal goal to be the smartest, most educated person, You have to know how to challenge your own ideas. Listen, a person could believe in anything in the world as long as they never consider otherwise. Think about it. It could be the worst idea in the world. Let's say you have a person who believes in some cult which believes in doomsday, that everyone needs to go to a cliff and jump off. So if that person who believes in that cult never considers otherwise, never considers that it might be wrong, what are the chances he's going to continue to believe in the cult? The answer is 100%. Because any idea, even the worst idea, if you never consider otherwise, you're always going to believe in it. So in terms of you for yourself being able to actually be a truth-seeking person, to consider your current ideas to be the absolute truth will really prevent you from becoming educated to anything further. And if you would just have that little bit of self-doubt, that actual reasonable self-doubt, you'll end up being a much smarter person.